Do I really have to do cardio?
No.
How do we know if I'm overtraining?
Athlete ready?
Should I cut weight
Go.
for this competition?
How much protein am I supposed to have?
Is it ironic that a podcast about strongman is hosted by a woman?
I think that's kind of the point.
Welcome to Lift and Load. My name is Christina Arthur, and I probably listen to a dozen different versions of podcasts in order to come up with the perfect inspiration for this video. I listen to ones about mindset. I listen to ones about sports, business, everything in between. And some were really good. And some were fine. And some were full of pompous pricks. And honestly, it was at that point that I realized the irony. Me listening to podcasts and shows about inspiration to introduce Lift and Load to you all absolutely defeats the purpose. And it's the entire reason why I, along with some really incredible and brilliant people, decided to start this project to begin with. So let's back up. I have spent the past decade as a gym owner, as a trainer, as a coach, as a nutrition coach, and in that time, I have been able to see all aspects of the health and fitness world. I've also been able to meet various people in different parts of their journey. I have had dinner with elite athletes at the world level. I have been counseling novices that are picking up a weight for the first time. And I've seen everything in between. And over time, as if I was stuck in a carousel of conversations of the same things over and over and over again. How do I do it? What is it? Can I eat this, not that? Hey, this guy did a thing. Can I do that thing and get the same results? Or honestly, the worst one is, why doesn't anything work for me? And those questions are at the root of a multi-billion-dollar health and fitness industry. And I think that's me being conservative with guessing the number. But somehow, in the age of social media, technically when we have so much knowledge at our fingertips, people are more confused than ever before. Yes, everything is technically available online, but that doesn't mean everybody should be making content. And after enough contradicting points from all respectable sources, I don't blame people for getting analysis paralysis and just throwing their hands up and giving up on their own journey before it begins. Cut to last year. I've been a strength coach for the majority of my adult life. And it wasn't until I happened to know a strongman coach that happened to have a gym near me, that happened to be very passionate about educating people about the sport and bringing people who, we'll call them the fringe athletes like myself. I was a rower, I was doing Muay Thai, I was doing jiu-jitsu, no form of conventional competitions in strength training. And he said, hey, you should try picking up this log. And I did, and I was hooked. And that was my light bulb. If we keep growing and if we keep learning, we can pivot at any point in our fitness journey, and it might be really worth it. Through Strongman and the community that is Strongman Institute, who, along with the HitFit Gym, made this entire podcast possible, I was able to get access to a community that I had never, ever imagined. Not alone talking to these guys, but being a part of them and sharing a stage with them and competing, and it absolutely opened my world. I gained access to athletes, from novices to elite, in the same room, which is really something a lot of high-level competitive sports don't have anymore. I have also met more cross-discipline athletes than ever before, from CrossFit to High Rocks. And I realized that not only can this form of hybrid training be really, really great for people to get their goals, a lot of people find they can't even do it. They think it's inaccessible, they don't understand it, and again, they stop before they even start. This brings us back to the noise that's out there. The second a person who is even remotely interested in getting into any kind of health and fitness dips their toe in the pool, they get smacked with knowledge. They have every video. The algorithms are working against them, or maybe it's for them. I don't actually know. And all of a sudden they're going, what about this? What about this? Do I do a Bulgarian split squat this way or this way? And they have no idea where to go. If they're lucky, they'll find a coach. But normally that's a step that people don't even realize. And they're too insecure, at least a majority of the population, to even do that to begin with. If there's one thing I learned, the health and fitness world, and I'll talk about strongman, powerlifting, and all the strength sports in particular, are full of really, really, really intelligent people that know a ton about technical components, they know a ton about coaching, and they know very specifically how to make people better at their craft. but some of them suck at communicating it. Not everyone has the ability to communicate information in a way that doesn't intimidate, alienate, or discriminate. And Lift and Load was born to find people who can exactly communicate and reach people where they are. Find experts in their field and break down components of very heady topics in a way that's digestible and in a way that people actually want to listen to, myself included. And hey, you might find a new sport or type of training in the process. I'll have various co-hosts with me in order to give different perspectives and sometimes serve as a pseudo guest in order to make the experience really engaging for people. And our expert guests really are the star of the show. And we have an incredible lineup for you guys, from nutritionists, doctors of physical therapy, elite athletes, dads, moms, and everyone in between, all with their own pieces of information that can bring you value. But more importantly, we'll have questions from our listeners. So if you ever have a topic or a question you'd like to have included on the show, go ahead and DM us at Lift and Load Show, or you can drop us a message at liftandloadshow.com. So to break my monologue, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that listeners had prior to this episode to give you an idea of what's to come. I have had 5 selected for me, and we're going to see how this goes. I want to get strong, but I don't want to get bulky. I'm going to make an assumption that that came from a woman. And I'm only saying that because I've heard that so many times before, and I'm trying to hide my frustration in that. Because a lot of women have been taught that muscle equals bulk and bulk equals bad, and it's a whole episode and a half of us to talk about. But here's the long story short. Bulk is relative. Assuming you're eating well, and not even well, just not even a massive caloric overload, and you're doing some strength training and you're taking care of yourself, you're not going to get bulky. People, including myself, work for years to add mass. And if you walk in the gym and you pick up a dumbbell and you gain 20 pounds and you have a ton of muscle, you're a genetic freak and you should probably go into bodybuilding. I also have a feeling that's not going to happen to you. Number 2, what is the best diet? Okay, so the word diet's a problem. When you live your life, diet to diet, you never actually learn how to eat. You know how to do something for a temporary amount of time that is inherently unsustainable. And then you're going to yo-yo back away from your goals because you couldn't keep it up and you never learned how to fuel yourself properly to begin with. But if what you're asking is what's the best form of dietary practices to follow, be it Mediterranean, carnivore, vegan, there's a couple questions you first want to ask yourself. 1, is it sustainable? 2, does it meet my macronutrient goals? And that's something we can get into more later. 3, do you actually like the food? Because if you don't like it, you're not going to eat it. If I hate beef, I'm not going to go on a carnivore diet where beef is going to be a huge portion of that. I'm not going to stick to it. 4, does it put you in the caloric surplus or the caloric deficit that will actually get you closer to your goals, whether it be weight loss, muscle gain, mass gain, etc. We're going to have a couple episodes that dig specifically into nutrition, so don't worry, we will get into that in a much greater detail. These are good, guys. These are kind of general. I like it. Number 3, how do I balance family and sports as an adult? That's going to be one that I'm going to leave for the episode with John Banks. Family and sports and the combination of how do you do both? Do you have to quit one? Do you train without considering it a sport? That's something that a lot of people struggle with. But as a quick takeaway, I'll start with 2 things. 1, training, whether it be for sport or for health, is naturally equally the most selfish and selfless thing you can ever do. And by that, what I mean is you're training to make yourself better. You are getting healthier, you're spending time at the gym, maybe it's your zone on time where you put on headphones. And that's a selfish thing. You are taking care of yourself. That's not bad. Being selfish in the term of health and fitness, when done responsibly, does not mean it's a bad thing. Because you're setting an example for your kids. You're showing up for yourself. You are living your life healthier and therefore inspiring them to do the same. You're inspiring your peers who show that just because you're in a new chapter of life doesn't mean you have to always put yourself second and you can still achieve goals at any age. And you're also giving the gift of longevity to your partner, your spouse, and your loved ones 50 years from now. You'll be around and you'll be healthy and you'll be moving. What do you want? Do you want, all right, let's get grandpa in the car. We can't move him. Or I think grandpa just ran down the driveway with the kids. You can pick which one you want within reason, but no one's ever hurt themselves by being a little fitter when they're 80 and 90. And here's a personal tip. Put it in your calendar. Treat it like any other appointment that makes sense to you, whether it be kids and sports or a work meeting. Put it in your calendar and show up for yourself as if it was any other appointment, because it is. It is an appointment for yourself to better yourself, and that is just as important as anything else in there. Also, make it recurring. It makes it a lot easier. Number 4, do I really have to do cardio to lose weight? Ultimately, in order to lose weight, that is a balance and a manipulation of your input and your output calorically. In order for the body to use fat as fuel, there's a whole bunch of nuance that does go into it in order to make sure that you are fueling yourself properly while at the same time being in a caloric deficit capable of losing weight. And it's also important if you are an athlete or if you're just trying to be fitter and healthier, you want to make sure you do so in a way that can maximize performance. So there's a couple tidbits here that are really important to note. You cannot outtrain a bad diet. And you also need to be eating enough that satisfies your BMR or your basal metabolic rate. So that way you don't crash your body and that your brain, your organs, all of it gets enough to actually sustain throughout the day. Because again, going back to a sustainability factor, if you are dieting and you're just like, okay, I'm just not going to eat any calories or I'm going to run 12 miles a day, there's other processes in your body that you're going to burn out. So balance here is key. Cardio is incredibly important for heart health, for conditioning, and for overall life. And it's definitely a tool for weight loss, but it's not the entire picture and you need balance. Cardio doesn't mean spinning your wheels for 45 minutes in a gym 6 days a week. You'd be amazed at what walking can do and counting your steps, which is actually something that we spend one of our first few episodes with Nick Shaw, founder of RP Strength, talking about exactly that. So that's an episode you don't want to miss. All right, we'll do one more. Number 5, why strongman? Because you can't sandbag a sandbag. And there is no sport that I have found that teaches principles that are better for overall life, longevity, and training than strongman itself. And trust me, I've looked. And like I said earlier, I didn't always feel that way. I thought of strongman as 400-pound dudes pulling a truck, lifting a car over their head, just absurd stuff that was really cool. And I didn't even process that it was a style of training or it was a weight class style of sport. And it never came on my radar. But it's people like Rhiannon Lovelace, who is the pound for pound, 3 times strongest woman in the world, at $130 herself, pulls a 600+ pound deadlift. It is masters athletes. It is adaptive athletes. It is people who never even plan on competing, but they're training and they're lifting things. And then they go home and then they put mulch in their yard and they don't get hurt. That is strongman. It's guys like Bobby Thompson, who's going to come on here in a couple episodes, and he's going to be able to help us break down what is strongman training, why would you do strongman training, and should you do strongman training? So that's going to be one that I think will really explain that question a little bit more than I ever could. This is a project I'm really excited to bring to you guys, so make sure you tune in week to week so you can listen to some of the best, the brightest, sometimes controversial and loud, but always really real conversations. So, for the first time, and what I'm hoping is more than I can ever count, let's lock in, lift heavy, load up, and do the damn thing.